So let's say you're looking for a Zelda-like game to play on your PlayStation Vita or PlayStation TV. A couple years ago, I reviewed an option called Adventure Time: Secret of the Nameless Kingdom. It played just like a 2D Zelda title, and even some of the story mirrored games like The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Just a couple weeks ago, a game released on the Vita that many people have been comparing to games like The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker, because both Wind Waker and this game use a massive ocean. Here is my review of the PlayStation Vita and PlayStation TV version of Oceanhorn: Monster of Uncharted Seas. Oceanhorn revolves around a young boy whose father left on a quest some time before, aiming to recover some ancient artifacts and take down a monster known as Oceanhorn. Now the young boy, you, set off on your own quest to recover those same artifacts and retrace your father's steps in order to find him. Now, the plot of the game doesn't really show itself in a very cinematic fashion. It's really more in tune with Zelda titles, where you might get a cinematic cutscene once every chapter, but the rest will just be talking to NPCs here and there to find out where you need to go, what's going on, and stuff like that. It's got a lot of story, but it's not very cinematic. Oceanhorn is a 3D action-adventure game presented at an isometric angle. As with other Zelda-like games, you travel through various areas and dungeons filled with exploration, enemies to fight, and puzzles to solve. Actual progression is location-based and based on exploration. When you start the game, you'll only have a couple different islands you can visit on your world map. But as you explore these islands, you will gain access to hidden bottles and NPCs that will locate new islands for you that you can visit. And then you go to those islands, explore, talk to NPCs, fight enemies, solve puzzles. Get the next island or two, go to those, and eventually you'll get to the main dungeon of each of the 3 artifacts you're trying to recover. The big thing here is exploration. Yeah, you're going to be fighting enemies, you're going to be solving puzzles, but exploration is the key factor because you don't know where the artifacts are, and a lot of NPCs don't know. You have to explore, get new islands, explore those islands, save NPCs that are being imprisoned by monsters, and finally they will direct you to where you actually need to go. And that's part of where the difficulty of the game is. When the game starts, you basically just unlock the first town and are just given the objective, go find the Earth artifact. None of the NPCs in this first town even mention the artifact. And when I was first going through, I found it by accident by saving an NPC about 3 or 4 islands later, and after a few hours of exploration of finding bottles that unlock new islands. Now, there's nothing wrong with this way of progression, but the game doesn't tell you that's how you progress. The way the game goes out, it makes you think that you go to the town and they're just gonna tell you where you need to go, but they don't. You kind of just figure it out yourself. Now, combat and puzzles. Nothing really out of the Zelda formula here. You can do straight slashes in front of you with combat with your sword. You can hold the attack button for a charged swing attack. You can use items like bombs and arrows to attack far away enemies, pretty much just like you use them in Zelda. You can hold your shield up, just like in Zelda. And you can use spells, which is a little unique, and they're mostly used for either fighting off faraway enemies or using spells to interact with your environment to solve puzzles. Now, speaking of puzzles, the puzzles are simple. You got your simple push blocks out of the way to move forward, push blocks onto square-shaped switches that look completely different than the other floor tiles to open doors. Use a bomb on a cracked wall to find hidden paths, chests, or hidden key items. You use keys to open doors. You find the master key to open up the boss room to take down the boss. All very basic Zelda puzzle solving. Unless you don't know to bomb certain walls, you pretty much won't find anything remotely difficult about the puzzles. The biggest noteworthy part of the game, though, are the bosses. Although there are only 4 major bosses in the game, they all have a pattern to them, and they are all difficult. Well, the first one is easy, but bosses 2, 3, and 4 are hard. They require very specific patterns, and a lot of times you have to fight them over and over and over and over again just to know their patterns, to know how to dodge attacks. The second boss gave me huge problems. I probably fought them about 10, 11 times before I actually beat them. Now, the fact that I said there are only 4 major dungeons and 4 major bosses in the game makes it sound like it's going to be a really short game, but it was decently timed. Each of the 3 artifacts took me about 3 to 4 hours to find, and getting to the last boss didn't take nearly that long. But a single run through the game I would gauge around 12 to 15 hours. That's not too bad, considering that the Vita version is actually cheaper than the Steam and PC version. On the Vita, it runs $12.99. On the Steam, it runs $14.99. As far as visuals, I don't really have any complaints. There are some jagged edges here and there on the character models, but really you can barely even tell they're there, even when you've got it expanded on the PlayStation TV. No real issue with performance. Load times are pretty short aside from the initial load time when you first boot up the game. Frame rate stays nice and smooth for the entire game. I mean, it's just optimized really well. In conclusion, Oceanhorn is definitely an interesting little Zelda-like title that'll fill that Zelda itch, whether you're a fan of all handhelds or just a fan of the PlayStation Vita. Although the game isn't very hard or in-depth outside of boss fights and doesn't accomplish really anything unique past just being a Zelda lookalike, it's still a fun little game if you love the genre. Reviews to Go rates Oceanhorn for the PlayStation Vita an 8 out of 10. If you'd like to comment on this further, feel free to below or head to the website at www.reviewstogo.com.